Hi, Patrick. Nice to see you
Oh,
again,
oh,
even though on Zoom. Today, as we agreed, we are going to talk with you a little bit about Slovakia, also about your organization, but particularly in relation of what public organizations do in society and in politics. Yes, it's an important topic here, an important topic for our organization as we consider ourselves also a public organization. Maybe let's start from the very beginning, kind of philosophical question. It's lots of being discussed here what is and what is not the politics itself. When do you say that you are in politics or you are not? So when we look at your organization's website, uh, the first thing I saw in English is that claiming that one of your activities of your Institute of Human Rights, yes, you work on, as I understood, on family and life protection, also protection of other human rights. One of your activities is to participate in the legislative process of the country and to influence the legislators and the executive power. So at the same time, you're a civil association, not a political party. And so, are you involved in the country's politics and do you consider yourselves to be politicians?
well, it depends what we say, what it means, politician or political. In a narrow sense, we are not politicians. We are not a political party. We are not making decisions. We are not sitting in the parliament or in the government. But we are trying to influence politicians. We are trying to influence governmental policy on issues which we work with, and it means we have possibilities as private individuals or civic organizations. We can participate in legislative process because there is possibility to comment bill proposals, legislative proposals, also by public. So we are using this opportunity that we are commenting on upcoming legislation and giving notes that, especially when we think that some proposal is wrong, that we write, we disagree with this. You should not pass this because it's against family, it's against life, or something like that. So it's one possible way how we influence these political processes. And another one is that we know politicians also personally, or when we know when somebody is conservative, and when we have ideas about how to make our legislation better, we visit them and we tell them, look, here is a possibility for you. You are a conservative political party. You can pass this kind of bill. So we are proposing also good, good ideas, new ideas for politicians. So through that official legislative process, we more or less try to stop, prevent bad things to happen, and through personal meetings and influencing politicians, uh, mm, like face to face, we are trying to bring new ideas for them.
Okay, you have answered partially on my next question, as of course we would like to know more about your organization. How do you work? How are you financed? What tools do you use? What are your areas of interest? You're called, if English translation, Human Rights Institute.
Human rights and family policy.
And family policy, of course. Okay, thanks. Mm-hmm.
Well, so our topics are primarily protection of life from conception till natural death. It means we are pro-life organization because human rights is a pretty good concept. We can work with that concept, and one of the human rights which is being breached the most currently in Slovakia and also other countries, European countries especially, is that we do not respect right to life of every human being, especially unborn children. So we are trying to protect right to life of unborn children, and also we are paying attention to family issues, especially definition of marriage as one man and one woman. We try to protect this definition, and also in broader sense, family issues, including parental rights to educate their children in accordance with views which these parents have. Also, religious freedom and freedom of speech. Then we deal a lot with gender agenda, which is coming very quickly, including all the feminist proposals, also transgender proposals, which is also protecting of children, because transgenderism is focusing a lot on children. So these are the main areas which we deal with. And go ahead.
Okay. If you finished with that part, so it's also would be interesting to hear about the history of your organization and also of your personal history with that organization, and maybe some previous. How did you get there?
Yeah, well, I personally started to be involved in pro-life movement when I studied at the university. It was 20 years ago, and I got in touch with people who were already involved in pro-life activities. So I started
Sorry,
to work with them.
you studied law, isn't
I
it?
studied law, yeah, as a lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
and slowly I started to focus more on these legislative aspects and argumentation based on not only but legal arguments are important in my work, because I studied law and many issues you can approach from this legal perspective. And slowly I thought about establishing a new organization which now exists. It's called Human Rights and Family Policy Institute, and I still cooperate with all the pro-life movement and pro-family movement. And So this is a little organization. We don't have many big organizations in Slovakia. I'm the only person who is being paid from this organization, and we when we make bigger events, we organize something. We cooperate with other organizations or with volunteers. And You were asking also about activities. It's mostly, like I said, that this work with legislation, and but also with influencing of public opinion, because it's very important too. So we publish things, we write articles, we organize discussions or events, including we are part of one of the largest demonstrations or public events in Slovakia, which is called National March for Life, and we are involved in organizing this event as well. It is being organized by bishops officially, Slovak Bishop Conference, but lay people are working on that, and my organization and I myself work on that too.
A little bit, please tell us a little bit more about this March for Life. where it is organized, when did it start, how many people gather?
Yeah. Well, before we started with National March for Life, we had a tradition of local marches for life, usually in Bratislava capital, but also in eastern part of Slovakia in city called Košice, second largest city. And they were local. It means there were few hundreds or few thousand people. And later on, we have proposed as a pro-life movement. We proposed to our bishops, Catholic bishops. We are mostly Catholic country, so we visited Catholic bishops and said that it would be great if we make a big national march for life for the whole country. And they liked the idea very much, and they said, "Okay, we will help to organize." help to organize. And in fact, they became official organizer of this national march for life. And first national march for life was in 2013 in Košice. There was about maybe 70,000-80,000 people attending.
And Slovakia has how many million?
5.5 million. 5.5 million.
Okay.
As I understand, we are maybe twice so large like Lithuania.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
so
So we had
about
twice as large rally like we did with this March for Family. Okay. Mhm.
And then next March for Life was 2 years later, 2015, in Bratislava capital. It was equal attendance, and after 4 years, in 2019, we had third National March for Life, and there was about 50,000 people that time. And we would like to have another one, hopefully this year, maybe in September. We will see, because we will have election in the end of September, so we have to think about whether it will be good timing for that or not. So it's not yet decided, but maybe September this year will be fourth National March for Life.
Just to get a notice, what kind of election is coming?
Parliamentary election.
Okay. Should we say that your bishops and the Catholic Church itself are really active on those special, I call them human rights issues, and they are also kind of participants in politics like you are, the same kind of participants.
Yeah, well, church. The main role of church is to save human souls. So it means happy life after death, eternal life. And the role of the state is happy life here on the earth. But sometimes these two things, they go together. It's bad to steal, because it's bad for living here in the earth, but it's also bad for our souls and for eternal life. So church and state says you should not steal, right?
And should not kill. Yes.
Steal is the same thing. You should, state is protecting human life, but state is not doing it consistently to everyone. So we want state to change the laws, and of course church wants to save human souls, and killing someone is really grave sin. So from the perspective of the church, it's very important that people will not be killing one another, because they not only damage the health and lives of the people, but also they damage their souls. So yeah, these two things goes together, and I'm happy that church is active. I'm not saying that church is activist. It's our work of lay people to be activist. Church is more like a teacher, or should be a teacher, uh, and uh, yeah, they they speak about this issue. Sometimes it could be even more, but we are happy for everything what church is doing. But also in other issues, the church was very active also in the matter of gender. When this topic came to Slovakia, pretty much all the Christian churches met together, registered churches met together for the first time, and they published a statement saying that we don't want gender ideology and we don't want Istanbul Convention in Slovakia. And this statement was read in every church, Catholic, Protestant, evangelical, Orthodox, whatever church, they read this common statement. So gender topic is ecumenical, very ecumenical thing, which brings Christian together.
Okay, were you also involved in this statement, getting to it, or you just came after it, the church
Well,
themselves?
there were people who were already involved in criticizing Istanbul Convention and gender ideology as such. I was one of those, and other people too, other organizations as well. So we were part of the, how to put it, the lay activities which started to speak about this topic and pointed attention to Istanbul Convention. So yes, I was involved in a broader sense.
Okay, so you told about your actions. Please add if you missed some. And what were the results of those? Those were actions. Did you make any impact? Were you able to change something in Slovakia with that?
Well, first of all, I think what was really good, or what we succeed, was that we prevented some bad things happen. We don't have registered partnerships, nor same-sex marriages, so-called. In fact, we helped to I mean the whole movement, not only my organization, but the whole pro-life, pro-family movement. We helped to pass constitutional amendment saying that marriage is between one man and one woman. We have this in definition in constitution. We prevented ratification of Istanbul Convention. In fact, our parliament 3 times rejected Istanbul Convention. So these are victories which we gained. We succeed not to change things, right? Because when things were good, so we have to protect good things in our legislation. Well, what we were less successful is changing protection of life of unborn children. We still have the same law from communist times, like similar like you have and all other Central Eastern European countries, because it was pressed on us from Soviet Union, and we still didn't change the law substantially. Only smaller changes. We put some better informed consent, and we raised parental consent from 16 to 18 years old of a girl, and we change also. We have a waiting period before abortion, 2 days, and but substantial change, like for example Poland did, we were not successful. In fact, within last maybe 5 years, there were maybe 10 or even more attempts to pass some kind of pro-life legislation. It was not successful. Usually, it did not pass just for one single vote, one single MP. If one single MP would change the opinion, it would be passed. So it's very tight, and I hope we will manage to pass some pro-life legislation, because it's realistic. We can see that it's realistic. It was more like bad luck or something like that. I don't know.
I hope.
And also, as regarding support of family, there were some good results, especially in recent time. We have conservative minister of work, social affairs and family, and some nice bills were passed which support family.
Very nice. So, looking from some other point of view, just in general, one could say that uh, if not organizations like yours, people like you, uh, the church, and just those simple people of Slovakia who get also involved into different actions, then Slovakia would not be having kind of this good way of dealing most of things, yeah, except the one you didn't achieve. It will not be like only politicians working in parliament or government would manage these themselves and uh, like like they say, no assistance is needed. You just go to elections, you elect them, and they make everything in a good manner, isn't that?
Yes, I mean, activity of people and civic organization is very important, and church as well. We also try to involve professionals, psychiatry, psychologists. When, for example, when we speak about gender issues and transgenderism, it's also very important. So, church, uh, civic organizations, and experts, if they all work, then they can have impact on politicians. Of course, um, you know, politicians, some of them are conservative and they do conservative things naturally for them because they think it's important. But most of the politicians, even they may be conservative, or at least some of them, this is not their priority, so they're not paying attention to that. So you have to bring issues and ask them, hey, pass this bill. Hey, there is a bad proposal. Don't vote for it. So activity of people who are involved in specific topics is very important to bring ideas and awareness about what's going on.
Mhm. And we are talking about your work with politicians, and we're talking about your work with the public, with itself, with just people. And could you point out some difference in between those two jobs? Which is, do you consider some of this more important? Uh, Maybe it's a good question. Maybe one is more difficult than another.
Mhm. Well, I think we do both things, political work and public opinion work. But it's difficult to say what is more important. I would say that maybe what the culture which we have is probably the most important, to influencing culture. But you influence culture also through politics, and culture influences politics backwards. So it's important to work also with politicians because a state can change things in a good direction or in bad direction. But in the end, what is important is that we will have good culture which will be protecting life, which will be protecting marriage, because when you live in a culture which is which has good values, it's easier to live good lives. So in the end, it's about people. We want to help people to live nice, good, happy lives, that they will not hurt one another, and they will live in internal integrity, and so on. And this culture influences a lot. Of course, you can have a minority cultures, some kind of positive deviation groups which will hold good values, but it's usually for smaller number of people, and the majority of people are more vulnerable to various ideological pressures. And every ideology, when it becomes popular, and later on it goes off, because ideology shows itself as unsustainable, as damaging people. But for a certain period of time, this ideology brings harm to people, and we want to prevent that. We see that gender ideology is harming people, and we want to help as many people as possible not to get harmed. And both public opinion and politicians are important. Everybody in a different, maybe different area. Also, church is important. So we try to work with all the sphere, especially public opinion and politics. But there are organizations who work more like charitable organizations, who provide help to pregnant mothers, and they are not so much involved in politics. To the contrary, there are organizations which are more involved in politics. Others are involved more like publishing things. So uh, I like idea of movement, and people have different approaches. What they feel as this is something what I would like to do. I would like to write articles, so somebody is writing articles. Somebody else, I like to talk to people and help pregnant mothers, to tell them about risks of abortion, and that they can find help somewhere else. So they are doing it, and together, all these people, when they work in society, it's very fruitful, because it's not just one activity; it's more activities, and everybody gives talents which he or she has.
Yeah, the way we do here. So the culture of Slovakia. Let's get back to the last decade of last century, when both of our countries broke free from this communism shelter, and we started kind of new life. And maybe very shortly, to get some idea for Lithuanians, which probably do not know Slovakia so well. What was the history in that field we are speaking about? Not on all economics, and other social issues, but that field, history, where were the things changing in that culture, how did various public organizations manifested in that history. Maybe there were also and are also other organizations, not only yours.
Well, maybe I would start with that communist times. I was a child at that time, but it still has certain influence on these days, especially this pro-life topic is strongly influenced by communism, because it started during communism, and uh, Slovak society didn't want abortion legalized. It was legalized because Soviet Union said it must be, but people got used to it, and it's very difficult to get rid of this abortion sort of acceptance, because when uh, 30, 40 years ago, when women had abortion, now they have children, they have daughters which have children, and they give bad advice to them. I was on abortion, you can go as well. So it is being passed from generation to generation, and people who are somehow involved in abortion issue, that they had abortion or they recommend it, or doctors who made abortion, they want to protect themselves, because they know it was something bad, and they want to they want to persuade everybody around that it is in fact good, because they are afraid of their conscience. So it's a kind of spiral, and we are still struggling with this. And maybe that's the reason why our society is not so pro-life like it could be. But things are changing, and I think people recognize now that abortion is certainly not a good idea, maybe necessary evil. In the past, it was considered to be just another form of contraception. Let's say that it's completely okay. But now people know that it's not good, but they want to tolerate it. So we are influenced by this, and we are influenced by also in a different way that we have seen ideology in practice during communist times. We saw all those lies. We saw all those mechanisms of making silencing people in the universities, silencing journalists, silencing everybody who disagreed. And now we see it coming from the West. It's not coming from Moscow, it's coming from Brussels and Strasbourg, and so on. And we see it, and because we experienced this in the past, we can see it better like Western Europeans who have no such experience. So maybe we are more resistant to these ideologies. Saying more doesn't mean completely, right? We also, people here are also buying various ideologies, but maybe in general we are more resistant than the Western Europeans. And when we speak about last, let's say, 10 years, what was important, there were several big events which helped us. And there are numerous organizations and activities, little ones, which are necessary. Those big ones were National March for Life, which I already said. I think it was surprise for everyone that so many people came, and I believe that politicians saw that there is a group of large group of people who really want something, so we will not go against them openly. Maybe they don't listen to us completely, they don't do what we want, but they are not trying to do things against life, because they know that there will be opposition. It was helpful. Another important thing was that we organized referendum for protection of family. Although our legislation is good, most of the norms, like adoption, definition of marriage, and so on, were just in ordinary statutes, ordinary laws, not in the constitution. So, but when we pass a referendum, it would be a stronger, it would have a stronger position on the level of constitution. So we went this way, and it was primarily about definition of marriage, and that we don't want registered partnerships, and we don't want adoptions by gay people, gay couples, and we want parental rights preserved. And it was very important because our society was, the culture from media, people are watching TV serials, movies. Everywhere is LGBT agenda. When they look into newspaper, it's there. And our society was like a frog, when it is being boiled. You will boil frog when you put it into cold water and slowly heat up. The frog don't feel much difference, so it will not jump from the pot. But when you put a frog into hot water, it will jump off. It will not get boiled. So we were like this frog, slowly, slow changes, step by step. We were being boiled, and this referendum was very important. That it made a stop and ask people, "Hey, frog, do you want to stay in this pot, which will boil you, or do you want to jump off?" And people had to take position. They have to think about LGBT issues and definition of marriage and so on. So this was very helpful. Even it was not valid from a legal perspective, because we have very high quorum, 50% of eligible voters. We didn't reach it, but society, it was very helpful for the whole society to make clear that we don't want to go this direction for most of the people. And as a result of this, when the referendum was still being prepared, our parliament has passed a change of the constitution saying that marriage is between one man and one woman. So it was not based on the referendum, but based on the whole discussion around.
I see. Let's lift some kind of curtain a little bit. We are not talking here first time together. We had several talks already, meeting alive in a more private atmosphere. And I remember that I had this feeling that the ties in between people, public or electors, and the politicians elected are quite strong in the sense the trust or distrust the politicians gain. It works. While we have this problem with the politicians, nobody trusts all the time, but still they sit in their chairs. And we cannot find this way. How can we trust them? So what should the public do to be able to trust the politicians?
Mm-hmm. Well, politicians are people don't trust politicians also in Slovakia. Well, we have some conservative politicians, which we know that they are of good. They have good opinions, conservative opinions, and we can talk to them. They can do something, not everything, but they can try. But the problem is that we don't really have conservative political parties, which would be in parliament, which would consider protection of life and family as the number one priority, and which would not have some other kind of problems like corruption or some tendencies to fascism or something.
Okay.
So there are not really such political parties which would say that, okay, I will go to the government, but protection of life is number one issue for me, so we must pass this kind of bill. If you are not willing to do that, I'm not going to the government with you. I will try to negotiate with someone else who will be willing to pass this kind of legislation. We don't have such political party which would consider this as number one priority. Everything else is more important, like corruption is more important, EU is more important, or democracy or something. And in fact, these pro-life, pro-family topics are sometimes pushed back. Partly it's because many political parties which have conservatives inside are mixed, liberal conservative mix, and the whole governments are usually liberal conservative mix. Or there is another option. There are socialists with nationalists, and this is not very good combination, because combining liberals and conservatives in one government is not working. It can help to stop bad things, but it's difficult to pass something good. So this is a big problem here in Slovakia, that this political representation usually is not willing to go to fights within the government. Is very complicated because they are partners and so on. So but we are in touch with individual politicians who we know they are active, who are willing to propose bills or who are willing to pass uh, changes when they are ministers, let's say, and we can trust them in many issues.
Okay, so I'm happy to hear that. Anyway, you have conservatives and liberals in one place, yeah, and still they manage uh, like to prevent these bad things or to pass sometimes, even it's not the top priority. On the other side, I hear that you have to work really very hard to keep this pro-life and pro-family agenda on the desk, isn't it? That you have to work yourselves more that those politicians pay attention enough.
Well, yes. Well, some of them bring very good ideas themselves, or in connection with pro-life, pro-family movement. It's difficult to sometimes it's difficult to say where this idea comes from, whether it is from politicians or civil society. Some things are just being considered in the conservative area, like worth doing, worth pursuing, and we as civic organizations, we ask politicians to do that, and they are trying to pass it, for example, in parliament. But without this pressure from our side, from people, they would they would not have that necessary support, and also maybe they would not go to those fights if because
Hmm?
every fight uh, which doesn't bring votes for them is sort of losing energy, and it's they also have limited scope what they can do. So they have to feel from us that we want this. If we would not be saying this to politicians, they would probably not go to these things. And um, and, and it, a very very important people are those who are not really conservative but who don't mind to pass some conservative agenda if they see that uh, if they see that people really want something. They are more they can be tending to say okay, to see good in the eyes of the public.
Mhm. So, as I've heard from you, even three times Istanbul Convention was rejected in your parliament, and I believe now it's the consequence of such actions of yours. Am I right or wrong that also this same-sex partnership registration was also three times rejected, isn't it?
Well, regarding even more times, I think,
Even
but
more.
some of those attempts did not have chance at all because it was by a single politician without political support, so it was kind of clear that it will not be passed. But several times there were proposals which were serious, let's say, because it was proposed by a serious political party or something.
Mm.
Uh, and yes, until last year, it was it. mm, I would say that public was against registered partnerships, let's say, and large parties like socialists, who are not really pro-family or anti-family. It's not really their topic. They have a part of the electorate are conservative people or older people, let's say, and they didn't want to go this way because why to why to discourage their voters. Yeah. So but last year we had murder in Bratislava when
Yeah.
a radicalized young man had killed two gay people, or two people in front of a gay bar. First he wanted kill in the morning. He was walking around the house of prime minister, and he wanted to kill prime minister, which is Christian. He's Christian. Uh, he was target number one, but he couldn't get close because of his personal guards and protection. And he wrote a long manifesto, and he was anti-Semitic, strongly anti-Semitic. He hated Jews. He was radicalized on the internet by some American Nazi groups and ideologies. And when he did not succeed with the prime minister, later in the evening, he went to this gay bar and killed these two people. And media immediately started to interpret it that conservatives are responsible for murder because they don't want to approve registered partnerships or gay marriages. Well, but if this boy was 19 years old, young man, he was atheist. If he would be following Bible and 10 commandments, no murder would happen, right? Because there is you shall not kill. So he was breaching, he was against Christianity, and Christians should be responsible for this. So we had this strong push from media and all the liberal think tanks and Soros organizations started to push money into Slovakia to quickly achieve some changes. And there was a proposal in the parliament for registered partnership, but it did not pass. And this was miracle. I don't know how this was possible because there was really strong pressure, and many people who are conservatives simply did not vote for it, and it was not, they didn't have enough votes, but it was a serious situation. It is over now. It's slowly, it's already several months. It's slowly like not forgotten, but it's not so heated up now. But there are still some attempts to change things, especially in transgender area. So yeah, I don't know how this happened. It was partly it was because we didn't really have progressive party in the parliament, because we had party called Progressivné Slovensko, Progressive Slovakia, which is the most LGBT or most liberal political group, and they didn't get into parliament. So it was helpful. It was helpful that they are not there. And I think also all the previous activities like these marches and all this movement around helped that politicians realize that, okay, this is media pressure, but many people still don't want this. So maybe it was also another important aspect.
Yeah, that story with those killings was widespread, except here. But as I hear, you have also the opposite, the dark side, if I may call that, of things. If you still had to push back those same-sex partnerships more than 3 times already.
It was, I don't know, not many times already, but
yeah, the same as we had already 4 times we did probably, if not more. Yeah, only maybe you did this in a more prolonged term, because we had to do this in just less than 2 years. Okay, there's also some fight in Slovakia, as I see, and you cannot see that everything is very calm. People are just are like more conservative, not those ideologic revolutionaries, and they go together with church. Politicians do as they wish. There is also attempts to change the situation for worse, and you have to work strongly to oppose that, isn't that? Yes.
Yes, exactly. And I think from the longer perspective, things are getting worse because young generation is very vulnerable, and they are. I don't know about the pro-life issues, whether they are different than the older people, but they are certainly more tolerant to LGBT political agenda.
Mhm.
Uh, and this will probably uh, in the time this will cause changes also in uh, in parliament and everything everywhere else, because uh, because that pressure, especially through social media and cultural, like music and films and TV serials, they are strongly pushing, and ideology is finding its way to people, and we are not good enough to resist it.
I see. I see.
I in general, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
Now is the time. Now is the time for this. But sooner or later, the dark side of this ideology will be more visible. It is already visible, but people still don't want to see it. But you can see so many people damaged by transgenderism, who regret that. They are hurt by abortion. They regret it, but media are not informing about this, so people are kind of they don't know so much. But sooner or later this will change, and this kind of ideology will go. Another one will come, like always.
Mm. And I see now we're getting to the international side of our activities. It's for the final. And if you are talking with me now, this means that you do some international activities also, isn't that? Can you tell
Well,
about this side of your organization and yourself? Well, why is this important to stay? You work for Slovakia. We heard everything about Slovakia. You don't work for kind of European Union or well this United Nations or somebody, but as we see, you are staying international also. Why is this important?
well, in a certain way, it's very helpful for me because I can see what other organizations do in Poland, Hungary, Lithuania, wherever else, or in USA, and we can inspire one another. We can see that this was effective, uh, and especially Western countries are are ahead of us in good things and in bad things as well. So we can learn what they did. Uh, so it's very helpful in my work to see what organizations of this kind, what I have, are doing. And also it's important because it brings encouragement when you see people of the same ideas, like-minded people everywhere, so we can encourage one another. And also it's very important because our countries, especially in Europe, Central Europe, we are facing the same pressures from European Union, from European Court of Human Rights. And if uh, if we try to resist these things individually, we will be easier targets for these global powerful organizations. But if we hold together and inform one another and cooperate, it will be more difficult for them. So it's very important that we know one another. Our politicians, conservative, will know one another and can have sort of um, coordinated, or at least somehow, um, that they will not be afraid of saying something because they are afraid that I will be alone who will be opposing this. No, if they meet together and say that look, we disagree with something what the European Union is proposing. We would like to object it. Why don't you do it as well? So they can encourage one another to prevent from these pressures.
Okay, thanks, Patrik. So please, your last words for our Lithuanian spectators of the show.
Well, I wish you good luck in all the fights, and results are not ours, but what we do, what we give to that, it's on us. It's our duty. So I wish you lots of energy and also creativity in all your work.
Okay, let's stay together. Thanks for this very interesting interview. See you next time. God bless you. God bless Slovakia.
God bless you too. Bye.